My name's Stickle Portal, and welcome to this introduction of GapFill. So this is a plugin that actually is very special because it actually shows you how to, well, it's kind of in its name. It's to fill in gaps of parts that Roblox doesn't naturally kind of fill in. So when you're building, especially if you're a builder such as myself, you're going to run into a lot of issues where you're going to have instances where, say, there's like a side, right, at a certain angle, and the angle pretty much is shaped like this. And so we're going to use wedge parts later, but say you want the thing to actually fit into it and make a good shape. Well, to do that, you would just have the red arrow right here, and you'd have the blue arrow right here. And then you'd pretty much get this uniformly shaped. I mean, it's not perfect, but it definitely does its job. So basically how the tool works is it kind of gets two wedges, and it then kind of gets like, it kind of calculates the angle at which part A and part B are at, and then it tries to fill in those gaps with its geometry with these wedges. So as you can see, they're very precise numbers, like 6.031.1437, or yeah, these both have the same values, but like mostly we don't usually use values that complicated or that complex. We usually use when we use studs, we're usually pretty exact. So times that we don't use the GapFill plugin is when we don't really need to use it. So for example, these are what wedge parts are great for. Very basic shapes that could definitely have these. So we have two parts right here that create this kind of shape, but if we put this right here, and I'm going to take a few seconds to show you, obviously this is a very simple shape, right? And you could definitely kind of, oops, I didn't mean to do that. It's cool though. But as you can see, it kind of makes this diamond cut shape almost. But when we're doing these, you can either use this or you can use the GapFill. So with the GapFill, there's going to be 3D wedges in there. So for example, it looks exactly the same, right? But if I go and highlight the thing, it's still the same because these are very basic shapes. So when you get into more complex shapes that are not right angles, that's when actually there's more than one of these wedges used. So usually when it's a right angle, a 90-degree angle, usually there's only one stud, but there are exceptions. Like see, for example, like with this, the game calculates that these studs, or sorry, these parts, this part right here and this part right here both follow exactly the X and Z coordinates. So because of that, their angles are 0 and 90, and because of that, there's no need to give a greater level of precision when it comes to the wedges being used. So with this, it's really easier to just use this instead of wedges, but even though wedges can be useful, you could also just be using that. So with more complex shapes, such as this ring that I made, I pretty much just went in a rotation and pretty much angled it out and made it do like this. So we got this like nice shape right there. But what I really want to show you is what this tool can actually be really used for. So we want to turn this into like a ring, right? And there's also a few more things that I should actually point out. So negative means, it's kind of hard to explain, but negative means that the part GapFill will be created on kind of the opposite end of where it should be. So for example, if we use end A and end B, right, it's going to create this up here because it is the opposite of being of it being in its actual place. And also notice how because of this level of precision, there's a lot more wedges used. In fact, we're using 4 wedges right now. But if I scale this down, right, it's gonna still be, it's gonna look seamless. It's gonna look like it belongs there. So with this, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But now we have, for example, one stud. One stud essentially means that, you know, it travels one stud. So its Y is one stud tall. So that's what it means when it says one stud. And then we got a best guess, which is pretty much what you want to use if you're trying to make things, because best guess pretty much, oops, I gotta put that positive. But best guess on default is how you actually make shapes such like this. So plate is it says make the spanning parts 0.2 studs thick, thin, but they still have good collision properties. So, and what they mean by collision properties is if a part is like really thin, say like, I don't know, like 0.001 stud, usually at that point your character is just gonna, if it's like swinging around in the environment, your character is just gonna clip through it, and it's not really useful at that point because one of its vertices is almost non-existent, if that makes sense. Like if you have like an extremely thin part, your character's more likely to clip through it. That's what they mean by good collision property. So if I put it plate, it's gonna only actually go 0.2 studs as it says. So as you can see, its Y plane is, its Y is 0.2. If I go to the next one, if I go to thinnest, it says make the spanning parts 1 studs thick. So thinnest makes the spanning parts as thin as possible, 0.05 studs. So that's very thin. It's not super thin, but you could still have collision properties at that size. But like I said, best guess is the best to use. But this pretty much, I've made a circle with this, and yeah, it looks like that. It's pretty cool, right? And another example would be like with this. We could make this very precise shape that we wouldn't really be able to make with, you know, regular Roblox. This is probably honestly one of my favorite plugins, and it's free, so I'll leave a description to it down below, and you guys can go check it out yourself. Man, that's very satisfying to look at. Like that's really cool. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you guys today. That's pretty much what I have for this. If you have any questions, always ask me, and I'm always going to be checking out like more of these plugins because some of them are very helpful. And that's pretty much it. If you like the video, give it a like. If you dislike it. If you like my content, please subscribe. I'm always making new stuff. And that's about it for today, and I'll see you guys later.